Given the following sequence of spot rates, spot 1 of 5.5% and spot 2 of 6.85%, the forward rate for one period from now, 1 year, is closest to. Let's bring in our formula to calculate this one. We're going to be using these two spot rates to calculate. So 1 plus spot 1, which is 5.5%. We're going to multiply that by 1 plus our 1 year forward rate. And then we're going to solve this since this equals 1 plus spot 2 squared. So spot 2 is going to be the 6.85%. So we're going to plug 5.5 in here, 6.85 in here, and then we're solving. So what ends up happening is this moves over here, which you can see in this term when we do our algebra. We plug in those numbers, subtract out 1, and we get a 1 year forward rate of 8.22%. Answer C. Synthetic collateralized debt obligations, synthetic CDOs, are backed by which of the following? Is it A, credit default swaps, B, leveraged bank loans, or C, corporate market bonds? So corporate market bonds, these are going to be called, when they're tranched out, they're going to be put into CBOs, not CDOs. B, leveraged bank loans, these are going to be put into CLOs, or collateralized loan obligations. So that's going to leave us with A, credit default swaps. And the key here is synthetic. When you see that synthetic, it means that it's normally going to be based on some type of derivative. And so that would indicate that we're looking at the swaps here, not actual bonds like in the leveraged bank loans or the corporate bonds. Answer A. When the government par curve is raised and lowered by 30 basis points, the new full prices for a callable bond are 99 and 103 respectively. If this bond currently sells for 101 on the secondary market, its effective duration is closest to. Let's bring in our formula here. This one's pretty straightforward once we commit this formula to memory. So we're going to take present value under a decrease in rates. So this will be a higher number. So when rates decrease, we would be plugging in this 103 since we're going to have a higher price under a rate decrease. And then we're going to subtract from that the present value under a rate increase. So under a rate increase, we're at 99. And then we're going 2 times the change in the curve, which is our 30 basis points, and multiply that by our current present value of 101. And remember, 30 basis points, that's going to be 0.3%. So then you need to take that 0.3 and then also divide that by 100. So 30 basis points is 0.003. And when we plug in all those numbers, we get 6.6 for our effective duration. Answer A. A bond was issued on January 6th, 2017 at 97% of par. The par value was $1,500. The bond is callable in whole on September 7th, 2025 at 103.4. The bond can most likely be classified under which category? Is it A, American callable bond, B, a European callable bond, or C, a Bermuda style callable bond? So the key giveaway here is we have one call date. If we only have one call date, that's going to be classified as a European callable bond. And this is also going to apply to options as well. So European options are going to have one call date, or are going to have one exercise date. So similar concept where you have one date to kind of exercise that option. Under American, they're going to be continuously callable. Same thing applies to the options. And then under Bermuda style, it's going to be a hybrid between the two. There's going to be multiple different dates that this can be called on. Answer B. The government of IACA, a developing country, has issued 30-year capital indexed bonds linked to the domestic consumer price index in local currency. The bonds have a par value of 1,000. The bonds make semi-annual coupon payments at a rate of 6%. Over the most recent 6 months, the CPI has increased by 4%. If the bonds were interest indexed as opposed to capital indexed bonds, the semi-annual coupon would have been. So let's bring in our formula to actually solve this and show it conceptually. So under capital indexed coupon, we're going to be applying this CPI rate, which is right here, to the principal of the bond. So we're going to multiply 1.04 times 1,000. So this ends up with a principal of, I think, 1,040. And then you're applying your coupon rate to this to get your coupon of 31.2. Under the interest index coupon, you're going to calculate your coupon rate first. So you get a coupon rate of 30, and then you're multiplying that by 1.04, the CPI, to get the same ending value of 31.2. So under this scenario, the semi-annual coupon ends up being the same, not lower or higher. Answer A. A trader enters into a 5-year swap contract to pay fixed rate and receive the 6-month floating rate. If the floating rate decreases below the fixed rate 6 months after contract inception, the trader will most likely A. realize a loss and make a net payment, B. realize a loss and receive a net payment. This doesn't make sense. If we're realizing a loss, we're not going to be receiving payment. If we're realizing a loss, we're going to have to pay out. And C. realize a gain and receive a net payment. So A and C both make sense from what they actually say, but let's look at this and figure out what it's going to be. So if we're paying fixed rate, we're locking in the rate that we're paying. So let's say that we're paying 5%, and then we're receiving the floating rate. So this is the rate, this is locked in, can't do anything. This is the rate that can go up and down, up and down, up and down. So it says that this fell below the 5-year rate. So let's say this falls down here. So if I have to make a payment, if the date that we're at is right here, that means that I have to receive this rate down here, but I'm paying the fixed rate up here. So if I'm paying a higher rate than I'm receiving, that means that I'm going to be at a loss and I'm going to have to make a net payment. Answer A. Which of the following is most likely a consequence of a lower no arbitrage bound at any time or before maturity? We've got A. A call option is exercisable if the underlying price exceeds the exercise price. That is going to be an accurate statement. If our call option, for a call option where these are bullish, so if the price is higher than the exercise, we are going to want to exercise that, because that gives us the right to buy at the exercise and then sell at the underlying, which is going to be higher than what we buy at. So A looks good so far. B, a call option is exercisable if the underlying price is less than the exercise price. You would lose money under this scenario, so you would not exercise because you would be buying at a higher price than you could sell at. And C, a call option buyer will not pay more than the underlying price for the right to buy the underlying. This is not going to be accurate. Bonds can be priced on all different types of strikes and exercises, and you may buy a call option that is higher than the underlying price for the right to buy that underlying, with the expectation that the option will go up. And anyway, we can rule that one out, and we'll go with A. A synthetic long position in a riskless bond is created by combining. Let's pull in our put call parity formula, and this is the best way to look at this, in my opinion. So we've got the call plus the bond equals the put plus the underlying. We move the call over to this side, so now we have bond equals put plus underlying minus call. Whether these are positive or negative are going to tell us whether we are long or short. So for a put, this is a positive value, so we're going to be long the put. So for A, we've got a long put, that's good. For B, we have a short put, and then for C, we also have a short put. So we could go ahead right away and rule out the others and go with A. Let's make sure the rest of it looks good. Long position in the underlying, that's also consistent since we have a positive value of underlying in the formula. And then minus call means we should be short the call. And that's what we have here for A as well. Answer A. An investor purchased a 3-month call option by paying $1.08. The exercise price of the option is $3.32, while the underlying is priced at 4.35. The price at which the break even will occur is closest to. And we've got calculating here. So break even is going to be our exercise plus our premium paid. So we're just going to take this 3.32, add that 1.08, gives us a break even at 4.4. Answer B. And one thing I would just point out here is even though the break even is 4.4, the underlying is above the exercise price. And so this option would still be considered in the money. Even though it's not technically profitable for us yet, this is in the money and would be exercised to make at least some of the loss back from the premium paid. Answer B. Which characteristic corresponds to the implied forward rate or the break-even reinvestment rate for a period starting in the future? We've got A, interest rate swap, B, forward rate agreement, or C, both an interest rate swap and an interest rate forward contract. So we're looking at implied forward rate here. It's right there in the answer. We're looking for a forward rate agreement, not an interest rate swap, which is included in A and in C. We'll go with B.